But the main thing you have to do is take on this intellectual argument. It's not the Laffer curve. You won that fight. The new argument is that national deficits don't matter in a global economy. And we need a reasoned argument that shows that that cannot be true. I also think while you normally talk about arithmetic, I'd like to talk about something else. Let's talk about what really happens. The other night, Goldman Sachs sponsored a little dinner for the governing boards of the IMF and the World Bank down in Washington. They were meeting, and they asked me to come by, and I had a little conversation with Sir Peter Gallagher, who was the Attorney General of Ireland when I was president, and now heads the BP boards and Europe's Goldman Sachs board. And the head of the Chinese Central Bank was sitting right there where you are, Bill. And all these other central bankers, big bankers from Japan and all. And I said, first of all, you know, most Americans don't know how this works. Basically, every day our government goes hat in hand to this fella who's got all this money in a country with a 50% savings rate, but a per capita income that's still just a smidgen of ours. And we borrow money from him to cover my tax cut, Iraq, Afghanistan, the drug benefit, the increases in Homeland Security. And we say, would you loan us money to pay for what we want, and we'll pay you back at interest? That's what we're doing. Now, let me tell you what I think the ethical problem is. Besides, I think it's unethical for a rich country like ours to take up 80% of the net savings of the world in a given year for our priorities. Never in the history of America have we failed to pay for our own wars, at least insofar as we possibly could. Now, one of my daughter's best friends came from a wealthy family in New York, joined the Marine Corps as a young officer, and there aren't many Jewish Democratic officers in the Marine Corps. He just won the Bronze Star for his service in Iraq, and I'm very proud of him. I love this boy like he's my own. I lived for 4 years in college with an Irish Catholic conservative Republican whose dad was elected a judge on Long Island on the conservative ticket. I'll never forget walking into my freshman dorm and seeing a Goldwater for President sticker on the door, and I thought, damn, I left Arkansas to get away from all that. And here I am in the middle of it. I love this guy like my own brother. He gets out of college, he joins the Marine Corps in the Vietnam area. He marries a beautiful Irish Catholic girl. They have 2 beautiful Irish Catholic boys. Her sister has a daughter who had cerebral palsy, was abandoned by her husband. She had a terrible time. So my friend and his wife took this child and raised her as their daughter. He's a commercial airline pilot. Their idea of a vacation with these 3 kids was to go with their local Catholic church in Southern California to Mexico to build houses for poor people. The other day, he took a 20%, and a couple of years ago, he took a 20 or 25% pay cut as a pilot, commercial pilot, to keep his airline from having to declare bankruptcy. There are most weeks of the year, I make more money in a week than this guy makes in a year. And these 2 boys, so the first son, he joins the Marine Corps. The second one had long hair and an earring in his ear, and I took him down to Camp Lejeune one day for Christmas, and he fell in love with it, came back, cut his hair, took the earring out. He joined the Marine Corps. Both of them have now served our country in Iraq and Afghanistan. And thank God both of them emerged alive. But I will tell you again, I have loved this guy like a brother since we were 18. He was everything that the Christian, conservative, ideological right says a human being ought to be. A devout, pro-life Catholic who served in Vietnam, and his children served in the Marine Corps, and he raised another child he didn't have to raise with cerebral palsy. And I resent the fact that as an American, I was deprived of the ability to support those boys that I knew from the time they were infants when they put their lives on the line for this country. I resent the fact that they were over there risking their lives. Their daddy was killing himself at a job where he had to take a pay cut to keep his company from going bankrupt. Our country was going through terrible times, and what was I, citizen Clinton, asked to do? Take my 4 tax cuts. That is immoral. It's not just bad economics. That is terrible ethics. And we will pay a grievous price here in America and around the world if we continue to conduct ourselves in this fashion and we let all these working class kids go out there and put their lives on the line and the rest of us pontificate about how patriotic we are, but we have to pay 1 red cent to support them. We say, could we please borrow the money from the Chinese? And so I want to urge you to keep up the fight. I know how hard it is when you're in Congress, when you're in the White House. It's much more popular to cut taxes and raise spending than to reverse. I fully admit that there were times when I could have done more than I did. But I know this, if you've got the right theory and you're moving in the right direction, this country will give us good results. We got 300 million people who believe in working and being productive and improving their education and investing in the future. But we are only at the beginning of these challenges. How are we going to convert to an alternative energy situation if we don't have any money to invest? Look what happened. General Motors just announced they were laying off 25,000 people. In America, they're spending $2 billion, that's $1 billion in new investment, not in China, in Canada. Why? Because the health care costs are 4% of GDP less. That's over $400 billion a year. How are we going to deal with these things if we have to spread the cost all across the society so we can be globally competitive? If we're up to our ears in debt because we don't have any discipline in spending, we don't have any discipline in tax cuts, we don't have any notion of shared contribution to our country's future. You were important. You made a difference to me. You were my conscience sometimes when I wanted to lose it on these little things. In 91, 92, 93, all the way through. But you are more needed now than ever before. Begin by taking on their central new intellectual argument that in a global economy a national deficit doesn't matter. It's just an excuse for us to do what we want to do. I'm old enough now to know most of the mistakes I made in my life happened either when I was too tired to think or when I thought crooked. I made up an argument to do what I wanted to do that had nothing to do with the reason I put out there. Every one of us who's lived long enough has made that mistake. We've got to stop our country from going down that path any longer. Thank you, and God bless you.